When Alonso is firing both his pistols at once, he holds the one in his right hand upright, whilst the left one is turned sideways. Now he did this because both of the Smith & Wesson pistols that he uses have right hand ejector ports, and in holding the left one sideways, it caused the spent shells to eject straight downwards, and instead of sideways, where they might have struck Alonso's right hand, and then cause him serious burns. Then we've got the scene where Alonso is scraping both his guns together to a drug addict. This was also improvised by Denzel. It's the one where he says, "Make a decision." I love that stuff. This is all Denzel all the time, and it's just his screen presence, his relentless power. Training Day is an interesting thriller where Washington truly shines, as stated before, but where Ethan Hawke also provides the equally necessary and inspired work of a co-actor in many scenes that leave you enthralled throughout this powerhouse of a movie. Anton Fuqua said, "There's something innocent about Ethan. He's just such a nice guy, but there's also something in his eyes that tells you that he's seen something." Denzel Washington delivers with his callous lines carrying malevolence and more weight and authority as the film picks up its pace. Also interestingly, the license plate on Alonso's car is ORP 967, and this is a nod to Officer Rafael Perez, who was a disgraced LAPD officer who was born in 1967. Then to give his character a much more authentic aspect, Denzel Washington even decided to have the same look as the disgraced LAPD officer Rafael Perez. Denzel Washington has frequently said that Detective Alonzo Harris is his favourite character that he's played. At times the camera is pushed in for close-ups of the characters, sometimes as they're just about to explode, and it seems that Antoine wants the viewer to feel the heat radiating from the characters, and this is what makes this brutal, fierce and tense police thriller even more compelling. And Training Day takes a well-worn format and infuses it with freshness, brutality and verve. It is a gritty and dark undertone embedded throughout, with a narrative that goes on to intrigue you and thus make you much more invested in the characters. Training Day isn't just one of the finest cops and robbers thrillers that I've seen in recent years, in that it is full of devious twists and tension. It is one that delivers tense, polished and well-made action. My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius, Commander of the Armies of the North, General of the Felix Legions, and loyal servant to the true Emperor, Marcus Aurelius, father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife, and I will have my vengeance in this life or the next. Yes! There was once a dream that was Rome. There was once a dream in Ridley Scott's mind that was Gladiator. And boy oh boy did he deliver. Did he not create a masterpiece? Gladiator is a historical epic from director Ridley Scott, and it should be up there as one of the best films he's ever done, and if not the very best, where Ridley Scott transports you from the comfort of your seat to the darkness that was Rome. This swords and sandal epic is a motion picture extraordinaire, and there are not enough words in the dictionary to truly do the film justice that it deserves. Now the aim of any film is to move you, and this does just that and then some more. Are you not entertained? Well, you flaming well should be, as this is just about as epic as it gets. The general who become a slave, the slave who become a gladiator, the gladiator who defied an emperor. It truly is a striking story, and one that is as magnificent as its title, The Gladiator amongst films, the apex predator, the daddy, El Quizo Grande. You get the drift. No film thus far has beaten this sublimely spectacular depiction about Rome, and no movie is likely to top it either. Such is the exquisite and epic filmmaking that is on display here. The Roman tragedy and Ridley Scott's masterpiece is an endlessly watchable film, an endlessly quotable film, and well, the film just gets it. It just hits the proverbial spot in many ways that others just don't. This is the Carlsberg of films, Gladiator. I truly and bloody well salute you. So Gladiator is an entertaining action epic with Russell Crowe and Joaquin Phoenix at the top of their games. And with Phoenix in this movie, he's the kind of villain that you love to hate. Ruthless, creepy, pathetic, childish, a flaming weasel, but bloody great acting as Commodus. This is one of the best films of a generation. And although this is indeed bold, I would hasten to add that Gladiator truly is that good. So in summary, the visuals are incredible, the sets are awesome. This is an epic masterpiece for the eyes, the mind and the soul. The music is the same glorious standard as the film. Now We Are Free still gives me chills and takes me right into the heart of the action. It personifies how great Gladiator is. This truly is a complete movie. Great storytelling, great acting, great directing, great score, and greatness personified in this legend of a film. So Gladiator is an entertaining action epic with Russell Crowe and Joaquin Phoenix at the top of their games. And with Phoenix in this movie, he's the kind of villain that you love to hate. Ruthless, creepy, pathetic, childish, a flaming weasel, but bloody great acting as Commodus. This is one of the best films of a generation, and although this is indeed bold, I would hasten to add that Gladiator truly is that good. So in summary, the visuals are incredible, the sets are awesome. This is an epic masterpiece for the eyes, the mind and the soul. The music is the same glorious standard as the film. Now We Are Free still gives me chills and takes me right into the heart of the action. It personifies how great Gladiator is. This truly is a complete movie. Great storytelling, great acting, great directing, great score, and greatness personified in this legend of a film. Then we have the nods, the acknowledgement from his soldiers, and the best part of the scene is, which is Ridley Scott's brilliance, is showing the deference, love and respect they have for their general, the all-powerful Maximus, and someone who always followed his men into the very heart of their battles, side by side, and like a true commander and general he is. Much like the great Julius Caesar, who was beloved by the masses, the scene portrays just how he knows his centurions, all on a personal level, as he knows that they are the oil that makes the whole machine work, and they will be willing to lay their lives down for their general and serve him loyally. This is just epic and great storytelling, and one that has to be appreciated, and in my case a multitude of times since it came into our lives with its brilliance. Then we have the great and memorable lines, "Some people should know when they are conquered. Would you, Quintus? Would I?" This line is so epic without even trying. It is a kind of goosebump line that should serve as the benchmark to which other films should aspire to achieve when they grow up. Ridley Scott's superb world building is one of his primary filmmaking skills, where he gives us a Rome that feels recognisable, yet still a break from the cliches that had seeped in before this epic. The recreation of ancient Rome is splendid. The atmosphere, the greatness of the Roman Empire, with its political issues, its military discipline, its amazing buildings, the hate, the jealousy, the love, the treason, and all of these components, all with relatable traits in the world that we inhabit today. Gladiator is just punctuated with such magnificent and memorable lines that you know that you've repeated and will be repeating forever. These lines will echo in eternity. They do not make films like this anymore. At my signal, unleash hell, shadows and dust. Goosebumps, my friend, goosebumps. There are also other great bits in the film, including where Joaquin Phoenix ad-libbed his scream of "Am I not merciful?" to Connie Nelson, who wasn't expecting it, and so her frightened reaction was actually genuine. Joaquin thought he would throw that into the mix to add to his authenticity of being ruthless, and it worked. Then there were the wounds on Russell Crowe's face after the opening battle scene, which were actually real, and they were caused when his horse startled and backed him into tree branches, causing him injuries, as seen, and thus the stitches in his cheek are clearly visible when he is telling Commodus he intends to return home, and this just adds to the authenticity of that particular scene. I had to come all the way from the highway and the byways of Tallahassee, Florida to Motor City, Detroit to find my true love. If you gave me a million years to ponder, I would never have guessed that true romance and Detroit would ever go together. Until this day, the events that followed all seemed like a distant dream. The storyline in Detroit, a comic book nerd and Elvis fanatic Clarence, Christian Slater, and a prostitute named Alabama, Patricia Arquette, fall in love. They then steal cocaine from his new wife's pimp and try to sell it in Hollywood, thus prompting the serious mobsters who own the drugs to find out and pursue the loving couple come rain or shine, as the two hit the road for California hoping to sell the cocaine, but the mob is soon after them. And then we had the score by Hans Zimmer with a xylophone driven theme, makes this a film that you will never forget, and it lends the right balance to this masterpiece. This is very firmly in the company of the very best, and this is a celebration of filmmaking, and it wallows in every possible crazy scintillating and seedy contrivance of all previous and recent American crime action films. Quentin Tarantino wrote the story. Actually, this was his first script that he ever wrote. It was penned whilst he was working in a video and comic store in Amsterdam, but the devil is in the execution of the end product, where this film truly pays off. True Romance is a hip, sometimes brutal, very clever and irreverent high-octane, high-voltage thriller with no dull moments. In saying that, Quentin Tarantino said that he never even visited the set of the movie during filming. True Romance is absolutely bold, bombastic and shameless in its exploitation of excessive violence, shocks, overacting, brawn, melodrama, naughty sex, badass baddies, rampant, unadulterated drug use and a solid storyline. Simply bellissimo, my fellow film-watching aficionados. I kept asking Clarence why our world seemed to be collapsing and things seemed to be getting so shitty. And he'd say, that's the way it goes, but don't forget, it goes the other way too. That's the way romance is. Usually that's the way it goes, but every once in a while it goes the other way too. Then we have the great scenes. Yes, the Christopher Walken and Dennis Hopper showdown is up there as one of the best scenes in cinematic history. The exchange of words between Christopher Walken and Dennis Hopper is crazy and tension-filled. It will leave you drooling like Cujo. You will be immersed into the world of pain that is on offer through every bone-crunching line, every nuance and every detail, with your eyes wide open and jaw trailing on the floor. It's dreamy stuff. They just don't make films like this anymore. The only gripe is I wasn't happy that Walken then more or less disappears from the film after this particular scene, when he could have been utilised much more as he oozed menace. He had that "you've got me in a vendetta" kind of mood. You tell the angels in heaven you've never seen evil so singularly personified as you did in the face of the man who killed you. My name is Vincent Cocotti. Brilliant. Just watch this scene and then watch it again and you will see the sparks shooting out of the screen, whizzing past your head. Terrific stuff, and bravo, just bravo. This is a gutsy, violent and definitely an exciting picture, and all the while sucking you into a telling, twisted and very entertaining tale. Of course, then we have Val Kilmer as the ghost of Elvis, and then we get Brad Pitt as a pot-smoking delusional waster in the nicest possible way, and then the giants, the big cats are in town with Tom Sizemore, Chris Penn, rest in peace big fella, you were a legend man. Then we have James Gandolfini as a ruthless hitman. Did I even mention Samuel L. Jackson? Say what again? I dare you. Okay, different line from a different film, but he is in this one too. So what the actual... But for me, you then have Drexel. What's a Drexel here, you ask, as Slater did. What's a Drexel? This is sheer magic at your fingertips, my little beautiful film-watching champion. Drexel Spivey is gold. I mean, he was so sizzlingly hot in this film that he was practically on fire, I tell you. Oldman chews up the role. He eats the scenery for fun and then stands like a phoenix from the ashes over this film and delivers a performance of his life. Oldman gave one of cinema's most brutal Scarface villains ever, and he even later said that playing Drexel was one of his finest roles ever, and I can see why. In a 2014 interview, Gary Oldman said he got the idea for Drexel's voice in New York one day. He said he'd heard a kid talking outside his trailer, and he literally pulled him in from the street and said, read this dialogue and tell me what you think. So the kid started reading a couple of lines, and he said, it's good, but it don't fly, it's not something I would say. So Gary Oldman said, well, what would you say? And he helped authenticate the character so that he could show up and become Drexel. This suspense thriller crime movie has plenty of twists and turns to push us to the edge and then just yank us back just in time. True Romance is one of my favourite films of all time, and it gives us the best bang for our buck in years, and this can only be described as a wonderfully wicked movie for its tantalising content, the scenes, the smart dialogue with a backdrop of violence that will leave you speechless. I loved every second of it, and this will forever feel like my movie. I can't say anything fairer than that. This film is the most romantic film I've ever seen. Solid characters, amazing soundtrack, great acting, and the cast alone tells us that this is one of the best films ever made, and it is an electric story of love on the run, jam-packed with amusing, highly quotable dialogue with lots of action and laughs, and it is a genuinely entertaining update of a classic 70s driving movie. True Romance is a wild ride not to be missed. I feel blessed for having watched this crazy beauty of a film, and that is all I want to say. Watch it again and immerse yourself back in Detroit and hear those xylophonic beats again. Bellissimo! Braveheart, a classic and most magnificent film of stellar quality, a real superstar of its time, and Gibson at his very best as William Wallace. Yeah! Solid, kidney-punching excellence in all of its grisly glory. Run and you'll live, at least a while, and dying in your beds many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for just one chance to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom? Mel Gibson, who directed and produced Braveheart, has transformed himself into a believable mercenary driven by revenge, passion and love, and he really does put his heart into this blood and thunder saga as both director and star, and the end result is a real bold and passionate film. The story follows a Scottish peasant named William Wallace, who's pushed into leading a rebellion against the tyranny of the English rule when his wife is murdered. Scottish warrior William Wallace leads his countrymen in a rebellion to free his homeland from the tyranny of King Edward I of England. And in this film, he delivers a performance of a lifetime. He really does, and you will be enthralled. William Wallace, Mel Gibson, sets out on a quest for vengeance that quickly turns into a crusade for freedom for the entire country. It doesn't get any better than this. And Mel Gibson didn't just star in this movie, but like I said, he directed, produced it, and, well, it just landed. In an October 2009 interview, Gibson admitted that the film was heavily fictitious, but claimed the changes had been made for dramatic purposes. And he said it didn't bother him because he said, what I'm giving you is a cinematic experience. And I think that films are there first to entertain, then to teach, and then to inspire. Then it is widely acknowledged that the real discrepancy between William Wallace's true dimensions and the much less imposing Mel Gibson, and that was even a realisation that Mel Gibson had himself, but he took a chance with some artistic licence in relation to this Scottish rebel hero story, and well, I think it paid off. Interestingly, when asked by a local why the Battle of Stirling Bridge was filmed on an open plain, Gibson answered, the bridge, it's just got in the way. Aye, the local answered, that's what the English found. The extreme violence as well as the human compassion in the movie are overwhelming in its brilliancy. In fact, the rough cut of the film initially contained much more violence than the final product. So fearing an NC-17 from the MPAA after negative test reaction, Mel Gibson went back and personally edited some of the film's most graphic scenes to show the brutality more off-screen. This is a rousing piece of cinema and you will be enthralled, and despite the well-admitted and obvious historical inaccuracies, it seems that this was needed in order for it to tell a hugely entertaining, engaging and inspirational story full of hope, courage and for standing up for your rights against all kinds of tyranny. As I've said, the battle sequences are remarkably gritty and violent, which adds to the authentic tone of the film. And the composer James Horner provides a sweeping, unforgettable and truly majestic score that's incredibly powerful and one that will give you goosebumps from years from now every time it comes on. The film will leave you under no illusion of the inhumanity and the vile and despicable things that are carried out in the name of greed, lust, power and control, and for evil intentions. This is a groundbreaking film and does an exceptional job at depicting both the valour, the savage nature and the absolute horror of war, and the lengths that people in history had to go to stand up against tyranny. The bone-crunching chaos of a medieval melee has rarely ever been so effectively captured on screen. A simple message of keeping up the fight, because sometimes the oppressive forces won't curtail and they will not draw back a foot, so neither should you in your quest. It is by far one of the most epic stories ever told on screen. The Academy Award-winning war epic and masterpiece Braveheart is an extraordinary film that set a new bar for the genre and is an absolute sculpted work of art that depicts every emotion of human existence. This movie is beautifully shot and sounds incredible, and the body of Braveheart is loaded with outstanding battle scenes, solid acting, incredible editing, amazing dialogue that is so rooted in inspiration, courage, hope, belief, political strategy, philosophy and stunning human experience of love, desire, passion, suffering and identity, and where freedom isn't free, and sometimes it takes death, gruesome and horrible sacrifice to survive at that time, and with parallels very much to the world we live in today. Yes, this movie shows how freedom is important, so Mel Gibson, take a bow, me old mucker, you smashed this one out of the park. Gibson has crafted a historical epic. Braveheart stands tall amongst the biggest and the best. Gladiator, Lawrence of Arabia, Ben-Hur, El Cid, Spartacus. This is without a doubt, hands down, one of the best movies ever made, and is easily in anyone's top 30 list of greatest movies ever made. Braveheart is as close to perfection as a movie can be, and its artwork, and it is as good as any film in a toe-to-toe battle, and the last half an hour was highly unpredictable, and yet it conveys such a powerful message. Braveheart is a stunning spectacle of blood and heart, a virile, captivating, punishing epic, and remains a thrilling and entertaining film. So watch this again with bells on, and just sit back and smile, my friend. Sit back and smile. So where do you live? Oh, I get around, you know. You never know where I might pop up. Wolf Creek, the original film released in 2005 and directed by Greg McLean, is the story of Mick Taylor, the extremely sadistic and bloodthirsty serial killer who enjoys kidnapping and murdering tourists from the Australian outback after deceptively gaining their trust and with that menacing laugh. Yes, today we talk about one of the scariest villains ever to grace our screens, and one that is up there with easily one of the most frightening, sadistic and evil killers, the main antagonist from the Wolf Creek films, Mick Taylor, sublimely played by John Jarratt. Now, Mick Taylor was a ruthless and psychopathic madman, a brutal killer to the core, and he viciously tortures his victims, as well as sexually assaulting and mutilating them, all whilst they are trapped in some remote location in the outback. It just gives you the chills thinking about having to meet him in that kind of scenario, in his domain, with his weaponry, his knowledge of the vicinity, and where you're at his mercy, where you would be about to join the vast numbers of erstwhile tourists who have fallen prey to his sadistic pleasures before you whilst in the Wolf Creek National Forest. What are you little bastards doing out here? Water from the top end. Yikes. This is one scary movie, and it's one of my best and most favourite horror films of all time. John Jarratt claims that his performance as Taylor was so convincing he was unable to get work for 2 years following the release of the first film, and I know exactly what he means. I mean, I even look at John Jarratt as a pure sadist who just seems to enjoy watching pain, suffering and death with his victims at his mercy, and even more disconcerting is that it really makes you think that bang in the middle of the outback it would be quite easy for a psycho killer like Mick to operate for a long time and just never get caught. So throughout the film, the outback locations are all rendered with a nice eye and evoke a sense of spooky isolation. Basically, anything could happen to you out there and no one would know, much less be able to help you. So I simply love this film as it is brutally violent, sadistic and unflinchingly realistic. It never gives the audience time to catch their breath or to feel any hope, and you feel the screen presence and genuine fear when Mick Taylor arrives, as you know that he is plotting and scheming to snare his victims, and they just don't know what we know, and that makes for a painful and a squeamish watch. Just brilliant tension and fear for everyone concerned. Did you know that the abandoned mine where they chose to film had actually been the site of the real-life murder of a woman, unbeknown to the crew, and thus the filming prompted a protest from locals who erroneously thought the film was about those events. Now, this movie is not for everyone, and I would say that it will leave you unsettled and feeling uneasy. And this is for the real horror fans who want a horror flick that will stick with them long after the movie ends, and then make them question any life choices they had of going to the Aussie outback. That's all I'm saying. Taylor is a proud xenophobe and even spent time in Vietnam raping and killing local women. And as an untrustworthy and treacherous man, he will display increasingly unsuitable traits, such as a psychotic glare before drugging his victims. He is a murderous, unpleasant, scary, vicious, manipulative, deceitful and clever man who seems nice at first, but ultimately is an extremely traitorous, dangerous and nasty man who is sexually obsessed with torturing, raping and murdering anyone, and women in particular, and his penchant is maintaining absolute control of his quarry. His victims, in every sense and manner throughout the films, just don't know what's coming to them. Taylor comes across as just some friendly bloke trying to lend a hand until we eventually see his psychopathic tendencies, and he usually begins by stalking victims and then finding a way to render their vehicles immobile, and then later arriving to offer help to them to get them back up and running. He offers to tow them back to his camp, and if they oblige, the victims are drugged and then sadistically tortured, and often if they refuse, the victims are murdered on the spot. Funny enough, there was a very eerie coincidence when some crew members were sent out late at night to get footage of the Wolf Creek crater, and as the location was many hours from any town, the small crew decided to camp out in their car at the site after they'd finished shooting. It was then that during the night a mysterious stranger showed up in a truck to investigate, and the stranger looked very much like the character of Mick Taylor, even from the old style truck he was driving. And then, after checking them out, the stranger then left. But the crew were so spooked that they drove an hour down the road before finally stopping to camp for the night, as they had just met the real Mick Taylor, or so it seemed. So during Wolf Creek there is a subtlety, a slow creep presence about the movie that makes it so chilling and so very, very real. It's a style of storytelling that seems to have been lost in recent years, and this one gets it bang on right from the off, as Wolf Creek is chilling, scary, brutal at times, and well, just wholly believable. And even though at times you know what's coming next, you cannot help but sit uncomfortably in your seat, looking through parted fingers covering your eyes. Overall, the acting is great, and the location work for the scenes is on point and fantastic, and the characters give the movie a very realistic atmosphere. So of course, see this film if you enjoy visceral, unsettling horror, as there are some genuine scares as the tension rises in the bloody second half of the film. And if this one is one of Quentin Tarantino's favourite horror movies, then I'm happy to say it's also one of my favourites of all time too, and Mick Taylor is my favourite horror killer. This is a truly classic horror movie, a truly horrific movie, and Mick Taylor is insane and creepy enough to invoke fear in anyone watching Wolf Creek. But the parallels between the sadistic fictional serial killer Mick Taylor and the real life serial killers of Bradley Murdoch and Ivan Milat might just be enough to make us never want to go backpacking in Australia. I mean seriously, it's putting me off ever wanting a trip to the Aussie outback and to the Wolf Creek National Park. No siree. Only for some Mick Taylor dude to say, "What are you little bastards doing out here?" Simply put, McAvoy's ability to turn into a monster on a dime is in full force here. But let's also focus in on the true moral of the story, and as such, a chilling reminder of what happens when good and innocent people simply fail to set and enforce boundaries for acceptable behaviour, no matter who it is. This is a psychological thriller that lies in wait for its audience. You know what is happening, but by slowly building the skin-prickling tension, your fear levels will keep on going up and up and up, and you know that something is terribly amiss, and this film is pure nail-biting magic. And of course, a huge pat on the back for director James Watkins, who explores the dark side of human relationships in this disturbing story, and this is just one of those films. And like I say, James McAvoy is a powerhouse of an actor. That's my boy! I mean, honestly, just put this guy in every horror movie from now on and have done with it. He's just that good, especially if he's playing the villain. His performances blurs the line between being charismatic and charming to unnerving and sinister, and McAvoy's phenomenal portrayal of a creepy psychopath is uncanny. What a scary dude, man. Speak No Evil is easily one of the best horror films of the year in my opinion, and the characters are just actually normal and you want to root for them. This movie will have you on the edge of your seat throughout the entire film, and the suspense was really well built up and had me interested at all time. Why are you doing this to us? Because you let us. When an American family is invited to spend the weekend at this idyllic country estate of a charming British family that they befriended on a vacation, what begins as a dream holiday soon warps into a snarled psychological nightmare, and as the hosts are harbouring a few secrets up their sleeves, unbeknown to their innocent guests. Yes, Speak No Evil is a 2024 psychological horror remake starring James McAvoy as Paddy, who's an English father who invites an American family to come to their house and relax. However, not everything is all as it seems. This is a rare psychological horror film that creeps up on you piece by creepy piece and quietly chills to the bone without too much gore or unnecessary nonsense, and all while cleverly relying on your imagination to effectively do the heavy lifting. It is a twisted, suspenseful experience that keeps you engaged despite being a slow burn build-up. Speak No Evil is an entertaining remake that admirably takes its own scary path in reconciling its own execution and still within the solid framework of the original, only this time with some effective and emotionally rousing results. The film's strong approach to its source material and for its compelling portrayals makes a lasting impact on the audience, and it is a taut thriller through and through because you know it's coming. Oh, it's definitely coming, but you just don't know when it will finally grab you and then grab the characters and then show you just how nasty it will be. Harsh Times will grip you up from the first moment, and then it succeeds by keeping its fingers wrapped tightly around your throat and squeezing during some really tense scenes when you just don't know what is about to implode on screen, such is the tension and the unpredictability of the characters. This is a very entertaining movie, and Bale is crazy and off the charts with his acting, his screen presence, and in terms of his amazing versatility. This is a crazy film, modest in its scope but very grand in its ambition and execution. The two main characters, Jim and Mike, bring this movie alive. It has a decent soundtrack and is in reality a diary in the day of two unreliable, irresponsible and crazy dudes who bounce off one another as they try to find a way to fit into the same society that they actually hate, facing one hurdle after another until they appear to cause so much carnage across the streets of Los Angeles. Harsh Times is a dark and brutal film, and this is another David Ayer's gem, and he's one of the most special and amazing directors in my book and deserves even more plaudits than he gets. A talented individual, and that is for sure. So in summary, Harsh Times is an energetic kick in the face, a bold, bombastic, no-holds-barred pulp fiction thriller that revels in personal demons, psychotic behaviour and the self-destruction of self, friendships and loyalty, all wrapped up in the kinetic vitriol of bad things and bad situations. So go and watch Harsh Times today. You will not be disappointed.
Hey man, what was it like to straight up whack 'em up? You point and shoot, pop pop, you move on, you do not stop and think, I'm a soldier of the apocalypse, man.
Harsh Times is a portrait of a male-dominated world, and in Bale we have a lively, crazy, scary and fierce performance, and one that you will never forget in a hurry. This is the story of loyalty, friendship, survival, a tough-minded drama about two friends in South Central Los Angeles and the violence that comes between them. Christian Bale, Jim Davis, oh yeah. It's an amazing and stunning performance, one of the best, with Bale truly making you believe in this over-the-top character, an ex-army ranger who finds himself slipping back into his old life of petty crime after a job offer from the LAPD evaporates. Is, well, just dreadful, I'm afraid to say. It will linger in your memory long after you've picked yourself up from the floor, and all for the wrong reasons, like an indelible scar that you'll carry around with you for endless days, wondering why you watched it and where the film went so wrong. With a plotless game adaptation that sees irritating teens trying to kill badly designed zombie hordes, this is bad on every level except the accidental comedy and the unintentional laughs provoked by exchanges like, "You created it all to be immortal, why? To live forever." You couldn't make it up. Well, clearly someone could, because I made a film out of it. To properly convey the jaw-dropping shock state previously thought to exist only under highly controlled laboratory conditions, viewers have expressed frustration with the film's incoherent plot, its subpar acting and lackluster special effects. Look, I get it, it's got mixed reviews. One user reviewer on Reddit described it as a terrible movie, but fun in spite of that, suggesting that while the film is bad, it can be amusing in its own right. Many viewers consider House of the Dead to be so bad that it becomes entertaining in its own right.